Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that constantly tells us happiness is found in achievements, possessions, or the approval of others. We are taught to chase it relentlessly, believing that the next promotion, the next milestone, or the next acquisition will finally fill the emptiness in our hearts. Yet so often, the harder we chase happiness, the more elusive it becomes. We look outward for fulfillment when the true source of joy lies within, in our connection to Allah and our surrender to His plan. True happiness does not arrive from forcing outcomes or constantly striving for validation. It begins the moment we let go, trust Allah, and align our hearts with His wisdom. The first keynote addresses the illusion of chasing happiness. Many people exhaust themselves in pursuit of fleeting pleasures, believing that achieving certain goals or accumulating possessions will bring lasting joy. They chase recognition, relationships, and wealth, only to discover that each accomplishment provides only a temporary spark before the emptiness returns. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught that contentment is a matter of the heart, saying, "Richness is not having many possessions, but richness is the richness of the soul." Sahih Muslim. When we pursue happiness externally, we are often left with disappointment because worldly gains are impermanent and unreliable. The true treasure lies in spiritual fulfillment, in recognizing Allah's presence and in surrendering to His plan. The second keynote is happiness through surrender. When we stop trying to control every detail of our lives and place our trust fully in Allah, the heart begins to experience a profound peace. Surrendering does not mean inactivity. It means accepting life's challenges with patience, understanding that Allah is orchestrating everything for our ultimate good. The Quran reassures us, and whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. Surah Talaq 65:3. By trusting Allah and focusing on living righteously, we release the burden of constantly seeking happiness in uncertain places, allowing joy to emerge naturally from gratitude, faith, and reliance on the Creator. The third keynote is the Quranic perspective on joy. True happiness is not tied to temporary circumstances. It is a spiritual state that grows from the remembrance of Allah, obedience to His commands, and reflection on His blessings. The Quran reminds us, "Indeed, those who have believed and done righteous deeds, the Most Merciful will appoint for them affection." Surah Maryam 1996. Joy and contentment flow from a heart aligned with Allah's guidance. By focusing on spiritual growth, performing acts of kindness, and nurturing our relationship with Allah, we cultivate a deep, unwavering happiness that external events cannot shake. The fourth keynote focuses on real-life examples of unexpected joy. Often happiness arrives in ways we do not anticipate, through a kind gesture, a new opportunity, or a resolution we never expected. People who stop obsessively chasing joy often find it arrives naturally, in moments of reflection, gratitude, and service. Consider someone who has let go of a toxic relationship or surrendered a long-held ambition to Allah's plan. Over time, they may discover that peace and fulfillment appeared in ways that were impossible to plan or force. Life's unexpected blessings remind us that Allah's timing is perfect, and that our hearts find contentment when we stop chasing and start trusting. Finally, the fifth keynote is cultivating inner peace and gratitude. Preparing the heart for happiness involves reflection, prayer, and conscious awareness of Allah's blessings. By performing acts of worship, helping others, and practicing gratitude daily, the believer trains the heart to find joy in the spiritual and eternal, rather than the fleeting and temporary. This mindset creates resilience, patience, and openness to the blessings that Allah sends, often in ways we least expect. True happiness emerges naturally when the heart surrenders, trusts, and aligns with the divine plan, transforming life from a constant pursuit into a state of serene fulfillment. Happiness is one of the most sought-after experiences in human life, yet it often remains elusive because we are looking for it in all the wrong places. Society tells us that happiness comes from achieving goals, gaining recognition, accumulating wealth, or being surrounded by people who validate our worth. We chase promotions, relationships, social status, and material possessions with relentless determination, believing that reaching these milestones will finally fill the emptiness within. Yet time and again, people find that as soon as one desire is fulfilled, another arises, leaving the heart unsettled and the mind restless. The harder we chase happiness, the more it slips away, and the more we begin to realize that true contentment cannot be obtained through external means alone. Happiness, as taught in Islam, is a matter of the heart and soul rather than a product of circumstances, and it is rooted in connection to Allah, gratitude, and spiritual alignment. The illusion of chasing happiness stems from a misunderstanding of its nature. We are conditioned to believe that if we only acquire certain things, success, recognition, wealth, or approval, we will finally feel satisfied. We pursue these things relentlessly, but external achievements are fleeting and unreliable. Wealth can be lost, accolades fade, relationships change, and circumstances beyond our control can alter our reality in an instant. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ reminded us that true richness and satisfaction are not measured by possessions or status, but by the contentment of the soul. He said richness is not having many possessions, but richness is the richness of the soul. Sahih Muslim. This teaching emphasizes that true happiness originates from within, from cultivating peace, gratitude, and trust in Allah, rather than from the constant pursuit of transient external rewards. When we chase happiness externally, we are often driven by comparison, envy, and unrealistic expectation. We look at others and see what they have, believing that their lives must be more fulfilling than our own. Social media, peer pressure, and societal narratives amplify this sense of inadequacy, making us feel that happiness is always just out of reach. Yet in doing so, we disconnect from the present moment and from the sources of joy that are already available to us. The heart becomes restless, the mind overworked, and the soul fatigued, because happiness is treated as a distant goal to be captured, rather than a state to be nurtured and recognized in the present. Islam teaches that the pursuit of happiness should not be a frantic chase after fleeting pleasures, but a conscious alignment with Allah's guidance and remembrance. The Quran reassures us that fulfillment and contentment are found through reflection, gratitude, and submission to divine wisdom. The hearts that are connected to Allah, that seek His pleasure above worldly gain, and that recognize His mercy and blessings, are the hearts that experience a profound and enduring sense of joy. True happiness is cultivated internally, not externally. It emerges when the heart is at peace with Allah's decree, and when we stop striving to force satisfaction from sources that cannot provide it permanently. Real-life experiences illustrate this principle. People who chase happiness relentlessly through material or social means often find themselves exhausted and unfulfilled, despite outward appearances of success. In contrast, those who shift their focus towards spiritual growth, gratitude, and surrender to Allah often discover a deep, unwavering joy that is unaffected by external circumstances. A person who stops constantly comparing themselves to others, who releases the obsession with achievement or recognition, and who begins to trust in Allah's plan, finds a quiet contentment that is both liberating and empowering. Chasing happiness directly is, paradoxically, one of the most effective ways to avoid it. By trying to control every outcome, seeking constant validation, or pursuing temporary pleasures, the heart becomes restless and the mind preoccupied. True happiness begins to emerge the moment we stop forcing it, when we release the compulsion to achieve it on our own terms, and when we allow Allah's wisdom, timing, and guidance to work within our lives. It is only through this internal shift, recognizing that joy is a byproduct of trust, gratitude, and surrender, that the heart begins to experience the serene, enduring happiness that cannot be shaken by the fluctuations of worldly life. True happiness is rarely found in the relentless pursuit of external goals, but rather emerges naturally when the heart surrenders to Allah and places trust in His plan. When we try to force joy by controlling circumstances, manipulating outcomes, or chasing fleeting pleasures, we often find ourselves exhausted, frustrated, and unfulfilled. The human desire for control and certainty is strong, yet life is unpredictable, and many things lie beyond our influence. Allah, in His infinite wisdom, knows what is best for us, and the moment we surrender to Him, we open the door to a deeper, more lasting contentment. Surrender does not mean passivity or inaction, it means actively trusting in Allah's decree, accepting life's challenges with patience, and aligning our desires with what He has planned for us. In this state, the heart begins to experience a profound peace that cannot be obtained through external achievement alone. The concept of surrender in Islam is deeply tied to the idea of reliance on Allah, or tawakkul. When we stop trying to control every detail of our lives and instead rely on Allah's wisdom, we release ourselves from the burden of trying to manufacture happiness. The Quran emphasizes this principle, stating, "And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him." Surah At-Talaq 65:3. This verse reassures the believer that reliance on Allah is not only a spiritual practice, but a practical approach to life. When we place our trust in Him, we are no longer trapped in the exhausting cycle of constant striving and disappointment. Surrender allows the heart to rest, the mind to calm, and the soul to find contentment in the certainty that Allah's wisdom governs all events, whether we understand them or not. Surrendering also shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already possess. Often we chase happiness because we feel incomplete, as if our fulfillment depends on acquiring something outside ourselves. By surrendering to Allah, we begin to see the blessings that exist in our lives: health, family, friends, knowledge, and faith itself. Gratitude flows naturally when the heart is no longer preoccupied with grasping for more, and joy emerges not from acquisition, but from appreciation. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu emphasized the importance of contentment and trust, teaching that the believer who is satisfied with what Allah provides is truly rich, regardless of worldly circumstances. This inner richness forms the foundation of true happiness, which cannot be shaken by loss, rejection, or unmet desires. Furthermore, surrender allows the believer to navigate life's challenges with resilience and patience. When hardships arise, those who trust in Allah's plan recognize that difficulties are not random or meaningless. Instead, they are opportunities for growth, purification, and drawing closer to Allah. The Quran reminds us, so be patient. Indeed, the promise of Allah is truth. Surah Rum 30:60. Patience and surrender work hand in hand. Surrender cultivates trust, and trust strengthens patience. Together they create a heart that remains steady and joyful, even in the midst of uncertainty, knowing that Allah's wisdom is at work behind the scenes. Real-life examples demonstrate how surrender leads to happiness. Consider someone who has spent years striving for a specific career or relationship, only to experience disappointment. Those who continue to chase relentlessly may feel despair, but those who surrender, trusting that Allah knows what is best, often find that new unexpected opportunities arise, opportunities that bring greater fulfillment than the original goal ever could. Similarly, letting go of attachment to particular outcomes in daily life, whether with family, friends, or personal ambitions, allows the heart to experience relief, clarity, and a sense of liberation. Happiness in these moments is not the result of achieving what was once desired, but the natural consequence of trusting Allah and releasing the burden of trying to force joy on our own. By learning to surrender and place complete trust in Allah, the believer transforms the pursuit of happiness from a desperate chase into a serene journey. The heart stops grasping at external validations and begins to rest in the certainty of Allah's wisdom. The mind shifts from anxiety and frustration to clarity and peace, and the soul experiences a joy that is deep, enduring, and unshakable, because it is grounded in faith, reliance on the Creator, and acceptance of life's unfolding according to divine will. True happiness, therefore, is less about what we achieve, and more about how we trust, surrender, and allow Allah's plan to work in our lives. True happiness is not a fleeting emotion dependent on circumstances. It is a state of the heart rooted in spiritual alignment, gratitude, and connection to Allah. While the world encourages us to seek joy in achievements, relationships, and material gains, the Quran teaches that lasting contentment comes from an inner awareness of Allah's presence and an understanding of His mercy, wisdom, and guidance. The heart that is attuned to Allah, that finds satisfaction in His commands, and that recognizes the blessings already bestowed upon it, experiences a profound joy that cannot be shaken by external events. The Quran reminds us, whoever comes on the day of judgment with a good deed will have 10 times the like thereof to his credit, and whoever comes with an evil deed will not be recompensed, except the like thereof, and they will not be wronged. Surah Talan, Year 60. This verse illustrates that our deeds and spiritual alignment carry weight beyond worldly measures, and that true fulfillment is found in living a life that is pleasing to Allah, rather than chasing ephemeral pleasure. Islamic teachings repeatedly emphasize that joy and contentment cultivated from within. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu richness is not in having many possessions, but richness is the richness of the soul. Sahih Muslim. The richness of the soul refers to a heart that is spiritually satisfied, that finds peace in worship, that demonstrates patience in trials, and that maintains gratitude in abundance and scarcity alike. By focusing on spiritual growth and prioritizing the pleasure of Allah, the believer's heart becomes a reservoir of contentment and joy, independent of external circumstances. Happiness is not an external acquisition, it is a natural byproduct of aligning the self with divine guidance. The Quran also highlights the importance of remembrance of Allah as a source of serenity and joy. In Surah Ar-Ra'd, Allah says, "Those who have believed and whose hearts are assured by the remembrance of Allah, unquestionably by the remembrance of Allah, hearts are sure." Surah Ar-Ra'd 13:28. This verse underscores that the act of turning inward, reflecting on Allah's mercy and greatness, and engaging in dhikr remembrance stabilizes the hearts of the heart and brings a tranquility that no worldly pleasure can replicate. True happiness, therefore, is cultivated not through frantic pursuit or outward accumulation, but through spiritual reflection, mindfulness of divine blessings, and conscious connection to the Creator. Real-life examples from the lives of the companions and early Muslims illustrate this principle vividly. The companions often endured immense hardships, poverty, and persecution, yet their hearts remained content because their happiness was anchored in faith, submission, and trust. And Umar ibn al-Khattab once said, I wish for nothing but the pleasure of Allah, demonstrating that when a person's priority is aligned with divine will, external circumstances cannot diminish the inner joy. Even in adversity, a believer who grounds their heart in Allah's remembrance and cultivates gratitude experiences a joy and peace that worldly truths cannot offer. Happiness through spiritual alignment also arises when we shift our perspective from what we lack to what we possess. Counting blessings, expressing gratitude, and reflecting on Allah's mercy enables the heart to move from restlessness to contentment. It is in this recognition of divine provision that the believer discovers that the source of joy has always been present, not in the distant attainment of desires, but in acknowledgement of Allah's continuous support, guidance, and blessings. The heart learns to see life's trials not as obstacles to happiness, but as opportunities for growth, purification, and deeper reliance on Allah. Furthermore, spiritual happiness teaches resilience and equanimity. A heart anchored in Allah's guidance is not easily swayed by temporary success or failure, gain or loss. When life circumstances fluctuate, the believer remains steady, experiencing a sense of joy and peace that transcends external conditions. This is the essence of true contentment, a state of being in which the soul is aligned with divine wisdom, and happiness arises naturally as a reflection of trust, gratitude, and faith. By understanding the Quranic perspective on joy, the believer internalizes that happiness is a spiritual quality cultivated through faith, remembrance, and alignment with Allah's will. It is a profound inner state that cannot be achieved through chasing worldly pleasures, for these are fleeting and unreliable. True happiness begins in the heart that seeks Allah's pleasure, that practices gratitude, and that remains steadfast in both ease and hardship, recognizing that the ultimate fulfillment is in spiritual richness, divine guidance, and the serenity that accompanies a heart fully surrendered to Allah. Often in life, the moments when we least expect it are the very moments when true happiness finds us. Many people spend years chasing joy, believing that it will come only when certain conditions are met, such as achieving success, obtaining wealth, or being surrounded by people who validate their worth. Yet in reality, happiness tends to appear quietly, subtly, and unexpectedly, often when we stop forcing it and allow life to unfold according to Allah's wisdom. These moments of unexpected joy are not random, they are signs of Allah's guidance and mercy, reminders that His timing is perfect, and that He is always orchestrating events for our ultimate benefit. By paying attention to these signs, the believer can recognize that happiness is not something to be pursued aggressively, but something to be nurtured through patience, gratitude, and awareness of Allah's plan. Life provides countless examples of joy appearing in unexpected ways. Consider someone who has long sought a particular career or relationship, only to face repeated setbacks. The constant pursuit may lead to frustration, disappointment, and feelings of inadequacy. However, when the individual stops forcing outcomes and surrenders to Allah's plan, new opportunities often emerge that were previously unseen. These opportunities may be better suited for their growth, align more closely with their abilities, or bring fulfillment in ways that the original pursuit could never have offered. The timing of these blessings illustrates that happiness is often a byproduct of trust, patience, and surrender, arriving when the heart is ready to receive it, and when Allah deems it most beneficial. Unexpected joy also teaches the believer to appreciate the subtle blessings in life. When happiness arrives without being sought, it reminds us that Allah's provision is continuous and encompassing. It could manifest in a small gesture from a friend, an unplanned moment of clarity, or an insight that transforms perspective. These instances demonstrate that true contentment is not always about achieving grand milestones, but often about noticing the ordinary miracles of life, recognizing the care with which Allah shapes our experiences, and responding with gratitude. The Prophet Muhammad emphasized that recognizing and appreciating small blessings strengthens the heart and cultivates lasting happiness. The lessons of divine timing are further reinforced by the Quran, which teaches that Allah's wisdom governs all aspects of life. And it may be that you dislike a thing while it is good for you, and it may be that you love a thing while it is bad for you. Allah knows while you know not. Surah Al-Baqarah 216. This verse illustrates that the outcomes we desire may not always bring fulfillment, and conversely, the outcomes we do not expect may hold immense benefit and joy. By observing the signs Allah sends through life's unfolding events, the believer learns to let go of attachment to specific outcomes, and develops the patience to recognize joy when it arrives naturally. Real-life experiences further illustrate this principle. A person may have long struggled with a personal challenge, feeling that happiness is unattainable, only to discover that when they stop obsessing over the solution, clarity and peace emerge. Relationships may heal unexpectedly, career opportunities may appear unplanned, or a moment of spiritual insight may bring profound contentment. These occurrences are often the result of divine orchestration, teaching the believer that forcing joy rarely leads to fulfillment, but that patient surrender and awareness of Allah's signs allow happiness to enter naturally. The concept of unexpected joy also emphasizes the importance of readiness. Happiness arises when the heart is prepared to receive it, which often requires patience, reflection, and trust in Allah's plan. A heart that is open, grateful, and attentive to subtle signs of Allah's guidance is more likely to recognize blessings and experience fulfillment, even in small moments. Conversely, a heart that is restless, impatient, or overly focused on controlling outcomes may miss these signs entirely, perpetually chasing a mirage of happiness rather than experiencing the reality of it. By recognizing the role of unexpected joy and Allah's perfect timing, the believer cultivates a mindset that allows contentment to arise naturally. Happiness is no longer something to chase desperately, but something to observe, appreciate, and nurture when it appears. Life's unfolding events, when approached with patience, trust, and gratitude, reveal that joy often comes quietly, in alignment with divine wisdom, teaching that true fulfillment is not achieved through relentless pursuit but through surrender, awareness, and readiness to receive Allah's blessings at the right moment. Cultivating inner peace and gratitude is the final key to experiencing true happiness, and it is the step that allows the heart to receive joy without forcing it. When we stop chasing happiness and begin focusing on nurturing our inner world, we create the conditions for lasting contentment. Inner peace is achieved when the heart rests in trust, when the mind releases its attachment to outcomes, and when the soul aligns with Allah's guidance. Gratitude, similarly, shifts the focus from what is missing to what is already present, enabling the heart to recognize the countless blessings that surround it each day. These practices transform the way we experience life, allowing happiness to flow naturally, rather than being a distant goal to be pursued relentlessly. The Quran emphasizes the importance of gratitude as a source of contentment and joy. Allah says, "If you are grateful, I will surely increase you in favor." Surah Ibrahim 14:7. This verse reveals that happiness is not found by constantly seeking more but by appreciating what we already have. Gratitude opens the heart to joy, and inner peace creates the space for that joy to settle. When we cultivate both, the soul experiences a calmness that transcends circumstances. Daily reflection on blessings, from the simplest comforts to profound spiritual gifts, trains the heart to notice Allah's mercy and provision. It is in this recognition that contentment begins, allowing the believer to experience serenity, even when life does not unfold exactly as imagined. Inner peace is further strengthened through acts of worship, prayer, and remembrance of Allah. Regular prayer, reflection on the Quran, and engaging in dhikr, remembrance, quiet the mind and center the heart, creating a sense of stability and security that cannot be shaken by worldly events. Surah Ar-Ra'd highlights this principle. Those who have believed and whose hearts are assured by the remembrance of Allah. Unquestionably, by the remembrance of Allah our hearts are assured. Surah Ar-Ra'd 13:28. By anchoring the heart in Allah's presence, the believer cultivates a deep, enduring happiness that is independent of circumstances. Peace and gratitude become intertwined, forming the foundation for a life in which joy is experienced naturally, rather than artificially pursued. Real-life examples demonstrate the transformative power of inner peace and gratitude. A person who is content with what Allah has provided, who reflects on their blessings daily, and who practices patience during challenges often discovers happiness in moments that would otherwise go unnoticed. Small gestures of kindness, the laughter of a child, the beauty of nature, and the comfort of prayer all become sources of joy when the heart is oriented toward appreciation and serenity. Conversely, those who remain focused solely on external achievements or material desires often experience a fleeting happiness that dissipates as quickly as it arrives, because it is not grounded in spiritual awareness or inner calm. Gratitude also transforms the way we perceive challenges, trials, hardships, and moments of uncertainty. When approached with a heart of patience and trust in Allah, become opportunities for growth, reflection, and deeper appreciation for the blessings that are present. By cultivating gratitude in the face of difficulty, the believer learns to see Allah's hand in all aspects of life, realizing that contentment is not contingent on comfort or ease, but on perspective and trust. This mindset shifts the heart from longing and frustration to acceptance, patience, and an open receptivity to joy. Moreover, the cultivation of inner peace and gratitude has a ripple effect, influencing others and enhancing relationships. A person who approaches life with serenity and appreciation naturally inspires those around them, creating an environment in which joy is shared and multiplied. Happiness, in this sense, is not only a personal experience, but a reflection of a heart aligned with divine wisdom, radiating outward and uplifting others. By focusing on inner peace and gratitude, the believer prepares the heart to receive happiness in its truest form,
The obsessive chase for external validation, possessions, or outcomes loses its hold, and the soul learns to rest in trust, awareness, and surrender. Through reflection, worship, and mindful appreciation of blessings, the heart becomes a vessel capable of holding joy, serenity, and contentment, creating a life in which true happiness is not pursued frantically, but welcomed naturally as a sign of alignment with Allah's perfect plan and the richness of a spiritually grounded heart.